A couple of weeks ago, I had a conversation with an inventor working on a new luxury tool. Now, he's not totally public with this yet, so I'm not going to share his name or exactly what he's doing, but generally it's a high-end wrench. So let's see if we can help him apply go-to-market timing for his invention right now. When you're thinking about any sort of product, whether it's a wrench or it's a medical device or it's a new insurance product, it doesn't really matter. Innovations always come down to three things. Do people want it? Does it actually work? And can you make money? Is this sustainable? You're looking for a sweet spot right in the middle where all three of those match up. Where our inventor is at right now is, yes, it's feasible. He's actually got a prototype. It works, working through these issues. He's working through profitability, meaning how much do you manufacture it for versus how much you can sell it for to make sure that this outputs are greater than inputs. That's really key. Otherwise, you might lose money for a little while, but you can't do that forever. The problem is if you have profitability and feasibility without desirability, without really understanding that, you have the field of dreams. This is a danger zone you do not want to be in, where you've done something really cool and you can make money, but no one wants it. So how can we use this model, and especially how this model changes over time, to help figure out how might he crack the code on desirability? Because we want to move from here into the sweet spot, and this is how we do it. The issue with this Venn diagram is that this changes over time. I'll put a link to the video where I describe this issue a little bit more in the description, but for now, know that this is a snapshot in time. If you figure this out, that doesn't mean that 6 months from now it won't be figured out again, or things may change. We all know that as innovators and inventors, but we don't often pay attention to it in the way that we need to. It really looks more like this, where desirability, feasibility, and profitability all change over time, and you're looking for a market window where you're not too early and you're not too late, because you go broke in either of these spots. So let's see what we can do to help out. This chart tells us a little bit about how desirability changes over time, and it often follows patterns. How might we figure out how a new hand tool, not a power tool, how might a new hand tool, what type of pattern might it follow? Well, it might have some seasonality. There could be, it's not really a fashion product, but there could be some seasonality in home repair or auto repair that we need to pay attention to. That could be something. I suspect that it's not. There could be a little bit of this wow tech. That's kind of the Chat GPT example where something just spikes and you really see this kind of amazing inflection point fast. I'm not sure I would expect to see this, but it could be. It's certainly not irrelevant, meaning anytime someone loses an election, this is kind of, think about the person who lost, they become irrelevant immediately. Sad but true. I doubt we're seeing a long, slow decline. I doubt that, but we'll have to see. It's not a big event like the World Cup. We'll talk about the World Cup in just a second. And, well, maybe there could be something about a kind of a long-term increase like this one. Again, all of these patterns help us understand what should we be looking for in the data and what are the implications for how we're going to time our desirability and our profitability to match up with these over time. So this pattern, don't stop here. Patterns are not data. There are lots of ways to get data, and lots of them are cheap or they are free. People talk about, like, well, where do I get the information? How do I know what people want, and how do I know how that's changing over time? Lots of ways to do that. If you're part of an industry and you pay for this service, you can put all the different companies' sales go into one firm, and they roll up that data into an aggregate. They disidentify all the data, and you can see that. That is awesome. Most people don't have access to that. So let's jump down. Your own sales data. That's a great way to know. That should be one of your most clear indicators of what's happening. But again, if you're new, you may not have that, or you may not be hitting your full potential. So, okay, great data, but you may not have it. Let's jump down again. PPC stands for pay per click. What that's doing is it's what an advertiser is willing to pay for the search terms and search phrases to try to sell these products. So if someone is paying a lot for different search terms, like adjustable wrench or Milwaukee tool, like a brand, you get a sense for how that is changing over time. And there are free tools out there, and there are some paid tools that will show you how those things change over time. Those are great ways. They're not sales, but they are what advertisers are willing to pay. That part's important to know. One of my favorites in my go-to default is Google Trends, and we'll get to that in just a second. I'm actually going to use Google Trends to help out this inventor to figure out what does the pattern look like, or at least give a starting point. But let's jump down. Industry research, sometimes this is kind of like the not so great cousin to sales. This is some person and some analyst who's kind of taking a look at the data. A lot of it's kind of BS, but at least it's targeted to your industry, not general information. General information is down here, like US Census data, Pew Research. Again, pretty good sources of information if that's all you can get, but we can almost always do better. Great, do something that's a little bit better right here. Your own surveys and interviews, great. Unless you are a professional researcher, the chances that you are going to get good information down here are 50-50. They could even point you in the wrong direction. The next one, and we're getting worse, by the way. This should be obvious here, and they're going to be obviously worse as we get down here. You see that thought leadership has scare quotes around both because it's usually not good thought, and it never qualifies as leadership. So again, not good thinking, not leadership. I don't know why they call it this. Great marketing, by the way, but please don't trust this. You see some article on LinkedIn, just don't. Don't. There's so many great ways to validate the information. Head down, your gut. Again, if that's all you have, sometimes this is enough, but unless you have deep industry experience, I would be really careful about trusting that. And especially as our world changes over time, gut becomes less reliable over time. And then finally at the bottom, I wish I wouldn't have to say it. I wish that it just cut off right there and we'd never have to talk about this, that some guy said it. And what I mean by some guy is someone maybe you respect or someone who sounds smart, and he just said it. And you take that as evidence. That is not evidence. That's just some guy saying something. Be careful, because often you run into this sort of problem. If you're in corporate, the exact parallel in corporate America is the HIPPO. The HIPPO stands for highest paid person's opinion. That means the CEO or VP said it. That means we're doing it, even if none of this other information makes sense. They are both some of the worst information you can get because there are so many better ways to get better information basically for free that don't trust this. Actually take a look at real data because these charts are nice pictures, but they never look like this. And we're going to see that on Google Trends right now. All right, this is one of my favorite tools to actually go get data to see if those trends and those patterns that we thought might be going on are actually what's going on. So I had to actually look up a little bit what a wrench was called, like an adjustable spanner or a wrench or a socket wrench or a pipe wrench, monkey wrench, just different types of things. I'll explain why a wrench attack is on there. That's a different thing. It's probably not what you're thinking. But again, when you take a look at this generally, you can see that obviously the general term wrench right here that we're seeing kind of go all the way across the screen here, this is over the past 5 years on a web search in the United States. You can see a little bit of an increase over time. So we're seeing that kind of long, slow increase over time. We'll get into why that might be in a little bit. But sometimes what we need to do is we need to remove one of those in order to see a little bit more detail. So let's remove wrench, refactor this. Okay, now we're starting to see a little bit more about what different types of wrenches that people are thinking about. In this one, it's really socket wrench that is the big one, getting a little bit more attention over time. This is the past 5 years, so a little bit more attention. That doesn't seem to be happening with the others. Maybe a little bit if I remove socket wrench here. I might see, a little bit of growth on adjustable spanner, a little bit of growth in pipe wrench. Not a big deal. What I'm looking for here, this topic for wrench attack, was a type of, I think it's a cybersecurity attack. So I wanted to make sure that if I saw a spike in a number somewhere, that I wasn't really thinking about something else, or there's something driving that traffic that wasn't actually a tool. Now, if you kind of get down here and you can start to see, hey, what are these rising queries of monkey wrench versus pipe wrench? That one is growing, monkey wrench tool. Some of these are really good ideas to take a look at because they are increasing over the past 5 years. If I take a look at over the past year, okay, now I'm seeing a little bit of a tighter view. I don't see that same trend over time because it's hard to see when you narrow the time frame. Those long-term trends can be a lot harder to see. So one of the key things you can be doing is playing with that time cycle to really understand that. This one gives you the trends that are happening, like linesman pliers, adjustable wrench, utility knife, some of those that are increasing right here. That gives you a sense for, well, which are the ones that are really growing fast that could give you some clues. You also can take a look at, hey, what's going on from a Google shopping perspective? So what I'm looking at here is not just search behavior, but this is more shopping behavior. So again, further down the funnel, and I can see that, okay, the adjustable spanner is growing in comparison to these. Remember that with Google Trends, you're always comparing one to another. If I were to put and let's do this just so we can see it, see the FIFA World Cup, or FIFA World Cup right there, and I were to put that on the same category, this is the problem. Of course, there's a huge spike this year with the World Cup because the World Cup is going on right now as I record this, and you can see that it's almost ridiculous that of the 100 times interest, there's basically nothing for everything else. So be very careful what you compare. It helps tell you, well, what thing is niche compared to something else. But if you compare disparate things, you're likely to see nothing down here. So let's get rid of this. Now, what I want to also do is I wanted to take a look at, hey, best adjustable wrench over 2004 to the present, basically all the data that Google had on search interest for the best adjustable wrench, just over time. Interesting here that I see some spikes, and again, there are some notes in here on improvements in data, so don't take that too seriously. But again, especially over the past 5 years, I can see a steady increase in time and then kind of a big spike starting to happen right here. This is notable when I think about what pattern does this fit. This is some new technologies are coming into the market, so the timing is good for a new product like this. So what might be driving this? Remember, there's that old story, I'm not buying a 1/4-inch drill bit, I'm buying a 1/4-inch hole. Clayton Christensen said that we hire products to do a job for us. So what are we hiring this wrench to do? There are a few things, and I search for them here. The first one is maybe DIY plumbing, DIY auto repair, DIY home repair. Okay, let's take a look at over the past 5 years what's been going on. You notice, and I'm cutting off the pandemic years before 2021 on purpose because those skew a lot of the numbers here. But what do we see over the past 5 years? Pretty steady state until we hit 2025. Now we're starting to see an increase here in DIY interest in plumbing, especially in home repair, but also in auto repair. What could be driving that? Obviously, economic stress drives that. people thinking about keeping their cars, their homes, and their plumbing longer and trying to do those repairs themselves using their own tools is a big deal. I would guess that's probably the main driver here, but there could be others. Again, the inventor needs to dig into this aspect of desirability to really understand the driving forces behind this. But this gives him real data to look at instead of just guessing what people may want. All right, that's it for this video. Some other options that the inventor could try in addition to this, based on what we talked about, could be pay-per-click data, could be industry sales data, could be his own sales data as he starts to put the product out in the marketplace. If he's planning to sell on Amazon, he could take a look at Amazon pay-per-click data and Amazon sales data. It gives you an idea of how competitive it is to market a particular product in different categories. The more competitive, the higher the sales. So again, there are lots of different ways to actually go get data that are cheap, easy, and very, very fast. No excuse not to go get it. Questions about how to use Google Trends, pay-per-click data, or other industry sales roll-up data? Drop the questions in the comments, and I'll get to them in another video. Until then, see you on the next one.